Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we will be discussing from 3 verses, 13, 14 and 15 of the 16th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. These 3 verses are given together by Srila Prabhupada. So, I will read the 3 verses and then we will hear the translation and then we will discuss something about these 3 verses from the purport. So, all the 3 verses one after another I shall now recite. 13th verse. Tatra tatropashrunvanaha swapurvesham mahatmanam pragiyamanam cha yashaha Krishna mahatmya suchakam. Then the 14th verse. Atmanam cha paritratam ashwathamno astratejasaha Sneham cha vrishniparthanam tesham bhaktim cha keshave. The last verse in this series of 3 verses, the 15th verse. Tebhyaha parama santushtaha prityujrumbhita lochanaha mahadhanani vasamsi dadau haran mahamanaha. So, the translation of these 3 verses given by Srila Prabhupada is as follows. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers who were all devotees of the Lord. That means basically the Pandavas. All the Pandavas were great devotees of Krishna, Keshava. And also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. People used to describe the forefathers of Parikshit and even the glorious activities of Krishna. Because Krishna was also ruling Dwaraka when Yudhishthira was ruling in Hastinapur. So Parikshit also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashwathama. Parikshit's birth was extraordinary. He is protected by Krishna even when he was in his mother's womb. He was attempted to be killed by Ashwathama at the end of the battle of Kurukshetra. But Krishna saved him in his mother's womb. So that also people were glorifying. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and Prutha due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The descendants of Kunti, that is the Pandavas, and descendants of Vrishni, that means the family members of Krishna. There was a very nice affection between these 2 families because Kunti was devoted to Krishna. Kunti was a pure devotee of Krishna. So therefore there was nice affectionate relationship between the Vrishnis and the Pandavas. So King Parikshit, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. He was very pleased to hear. What was he pleased to hear? The glories of Lord Krishna and the glories of Krishna's pure devotees, the Pandavas. And when he was pleased by such an act of glorification of Krishna and his pure devotees, he rewarded the singers with very valuable necklaces and very valuable clothing. So, Srila Prabhupada explains a significant point to be noted in these verses. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, kings and great personalities of the state are presented with welcome addresses. This is the Vedic culture. This is a system from time immemorial, and Maharaj Parikshit, since he was one of the well-known emperors of the world, was also presented with addresses of welcome in all parts of the world as he visited those places. He was a very great emperor. So naturally people would welcome him. A great personality is welcomed when he visits a certain place. People who are conversant with his greatness, they will glorify him for the benefit of everyone else. The subject matter of those welcome addresses was Krishna. This is the most important point. How is it that Krishna is the subject matter of all those welcome addresses when Parikshit was traveling in different parts of his kingdom? Because Parikshit was a great devotee of Krishna. Parikshit's forefathers who were ruling the earth planet, the Pandavas, they were also great devotees of Krishna. So, whether somebody glorifies Krishna or Krishna's pure devotees, always the subject matter of such glorification is Krishna. That's why the Bhagavatam, which contains nothing but the glorification of Krishna and his pure devotees, is also called Krishna Samhita. That means it is that special Vedic literature, Samhita means Vedic literature, which is exclusively devoted to descriptions of the glorifications of Krishna. That is the speciality of the Bhagavatam. So therefore, it is called Krishna Samhita. It's a very special literature. Similarly, here it is said, wherever Parikshit went, the welcome addresses that were given to Parikshit, the subject matter was Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada clarifies, Krishna means Krishna and his eternal devotees, as the king means the king and his confidential associates. A king is never alone. When a king travels, he has got his confidential associates with him. Similarly, Krishna is never alone. Krishna is always with his confidential associates who are all his devotees. All are his devotees. Krishna is the one and only one Supreme Lord, and everyone else, especially in the spiritual world, everyone else is devotee. Actually, everyone in the material world also is a devotee of Krishna, but in the material world, people are forgetful of their devotional relationship with Krishna. That is the difference between the spiritual world and the material world. So, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna and his unalloyed devotees cannot be separated, and therefore glorifying the devotee means glorifying the Lord, and vice versa. So, glorification of devotee means it is nothing but the glorification of Krishna only. Because the object of the devotion of the devotees is Krishna only and nobody else. So, when Shastras say bhakti. Bhakti refers to devotion towards Krishna only and not devotion towards some other material personality, some other object of glorification. No. Just like they say Desh Bhakti, devoted to the country. That word bhakti cannot be used, strictly speaking, for somebody who is very devoted to, who's patriotic. The word bhakti cannot be used. Bhakti refers to devotion to Krishna only. So, even if somebody glorifies the devotee, that glorification will necessarily be glorification of Krishna only. Because devotees are all the time thinking of Krishna, speaking about Krishna, remembering Krishna, do every activity for the sake of pleasing Krishna. That is bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada further says, Maharaj Parikshit would not have been glad to hear about the glories of his forefathers like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna had they not been connected with the activities of Lord Krishna. This is a characteristic of a devotee. He is not simply attached to his family members like ordinary people are. No. His attachment is for devotees. His attachment is for Krishna and Krishna's devotees. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord and his different energies. This is the symptom of a devotee. Devotee always wants the presence of the Lord. And how does a devotee always be in the presence of the Lord? By constantly thinking of him, by constantly remembering him, by constantly chanting his name, by constantly hearing about his glories, by constantly engaging in different acts of devotional service to Lord Krishna. So therefore, Maharaj Parikshit felt the presence of the Lord when Krishna was glorified by his activities, especially when Parikshit was saved by Lord Krishna in the womb of his mother. So that reminded him of Krishna. Whatever glorification people did simply reminded Parikshit of Krishna, 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 Krishna. So, therefore, Krishna was the only object of glorification in all such welcome addresses. That is the important point. So, Srila Prabhupada explains, the material world is full of dangers at every step. That's the description of the Bhagavatam. Padam padam yat vipadam. Every step there is danger. And the devotees sometimes are apparently placed into dangerous positions. And when they are saved by the Supreme Lord Krishna, Krishna becomes glorified. See, this is the description that is there in the scriptures. That sometimes devotees are also put into dangers. But devotees have no other shelter other than Krishna. So when they are in danger, especially devotees pray to Krishna. They think of Krishna. They seek shelter in Krishna's lotus feet. And Krishna is always very, very, very attentive to his devotees. First of all, devotees cannot be harmed by anybody. In case apparently in the material world there is some harm, immediately Krishna is there to save the devotees. Paritranaya sadhuna. as described in Bhagavad Gita. So, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna would not have been glorified as speaker of Bhagavad Gita had his devotees like the Pandavas not been entangled in the battle of Kurukshetra. See, the Pandavas' involvement in the battle of Kurukshetra is part of Krishna Leela. For what purpose? Multiple purposes. That Krishna came to reduce the burden of this earth planet, which was overburdened by demons. So Pandavas assisted Krishna by fighting in the battlefield of Kurukshetra and killing those demons or demoniac natured persons. So they are simultaneously participating in Krishna Leela and also reducing the burden of this world, which was Krishna's purpose of descent. So Srila Prabhupada also says, nowadays also there are presentations of welcome address, but people glorify or flatter, that's the correct word, the leaders or the great personalities, but always such glorification is not factual. Simply for pleasing the person, they may say so many things. He or she may or may not be actually worthy of all such glorification. Whereas in the former times, glorification was factual. The singers of the glories of the great kings would not simply flatter them by some false statements. No, never. And also, the kings would actually reward the singers with nice presentations. But nowadays, where is such a reward being given? Because they themselves are not sufficiently rich, and if they are rich, they are not willing to part with their wealth. So there is a difference between the way formerly great personalities used to be received and welcomed and rewarded, and what goes on today. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.